expected to start impacting this area starting probably tomorrow morning. And then it could, depending on what the storm does, we could also see hurricane force winds as well. So we are by no means out of the woods on the east coast of Florida. If anything, overnight the forecast got a little bit worse. Before I go on about here in Florida, I would ask everybody also to take a moment just to keep our neighbors and our friends who are just to the east of us in the Bahamas in their thoughts and prayers. As you can see over my shoulder here, the eye of the storm now is coming onshore around Abacoa, and it is certainly going to be devastating there with 175-mile-an-hour winds and a very strong storm surge, which is coming in, I believe, pretty close to a high tide anyway. So we need to keep them in our thoughts and prayers. As I said, there remains about a 50% chance that this storm could still make landfall on the eastern seaboard of Florida. And so we are prepared for that in case it happens. This is a cone of uncertainty that's continued to change, and I would ask everybody to stay very vigilant. Don't get fixated on the storm track and the hurricane being centered right offshore. That could easily change. People need to be prepared in case the storm shifts a little bit further west. Every mile closer makes a difference in a storm of this magnitude and strength. And so don't get fixated on the track, because if there's anything I can almost certainly guarantee is it's going to change again between now and whenever the storm track passes by. A couple of other things I'd like just to remind people on as well as you make your final preparations, because today really is the final opportunity to make preparations. Please be very careful when you're on the road, and get off the road as quickly as you can. There's going to be some feeder bands that start coming through. We've already seen rain showers coming through, and there could be some power outages. And we've also seen, unfortunately, we've already had an accident. An FPL employee was put in the hospital this morning coming to work when a member of the public ran a red light and T-boned him. And you know, when you come up, especially if lights are out, it's a four-way stop. Come to a complete stop, drive defensively. Most importantly, if you can, get off the roads. There's no reason to be on the roads, particularly when the weather starts coming in. It's just too dangerous. Also, after the storm, even before, I would ask you to please keep in mind the first responders and the utility workers that are out on the roads. It's the law to move over. If you see them on the side of the road and they're working, move over one lane, slow down. These folks are out there trying to help others. I would ask you to please keep them, in mind and obey the law and move over. We're prepared, even if this storm does continue west and hits us directly for this storm. We have spent the last almost week now preparing and bringing in people from across the country. We have close to 16,000 people now either pre-staged or rolling right now into staging sites across Florida. It is one of the largest contingencies we've ever had in preparation for a storm. And as soon as we're able, when winds get below 35 miles an hour, we will deploy into the field to get the lights back on. With a storm this size, even if it doesn't make landfall, we're going to see tropical storm force winds, potentially hurricane force winds, and storm surge, and there will be power outages. There will be areas of our territory that are impacted from heavy rain that will saturate the ground, and then when you layer in the wind, trees will go over. They will create power outages, and we will get out there and get the lights on as quickly as possible, but we also have to wait for the winds to pass so we can do that safely. So I ask for your understanding and your patience because this is a very slow-moving storm, and it's going to take some time for the effects to actually pass by and before we can actually get out, understand what's happened, and then start to restore that power. If there's been an evacuation order in your area and that is occurring on some of the barrier islands, I would ask you to heed those warnings. Local law enforcement and the state has been very vigilant in tracking the storm. They are making recommendations based on their best information and their judgment. If there's an evacuation order, I would ask you to take it seriously and to heed that warning. We will continue to share with you all the best information we have. Probably the best resource, actually, for you to find out on power outages is on our through our app. If you don't have the app, download it now. That is going to give you the most up-to-date information. Our website also is going to provide you the most up-to-date information, and we will update it on a real-time basis. It takes a little while for us to get information in, so again, I'd ask you to be patient, and we will be as vigilant as we can on getting the information out to you, and then getting the lights up, most importantly, as quickly as we can. But we're also going to be very focused on safety, and we are not going to compromise on that. Our crews will be out there as soon as the winds are 35 miles an hour or less. Before that, it's going to be important for all of us to be patient and bear with the fact that there's going to be, unfortunately, some outages. A few other things just to remind people on safety. For those who are using generators, please do not use a generator inside your house or even inside your garage, and follow all the instructions very carefully. We unfortunately, every storm, find that people fail to heed those warnings, and it can be catastrophic if you don't follow those directions. High water is also a very real possibility here. We expect to have heavy rains. There will be flooding. Do not drive through high water. You never know exactly what's below, and it can be treacherous. Do not wade through the high water or to try to clear debris. There could be a downed electrical line. It could be energized, and it'll be fatal if you do that. So again, avoid the high water. We will come in as quickly as we can. I know everybody wants to get their power up as quickly as possible, but don't take any risks when it comes down to either wading through high water, clearing an electric line yourself, and again, pay attention to the instructions on using any kind of backup generator. Again, I just want to say to everybody, you have my commitment that the largest workforce we've ever deployed will work 24/7 to get your lights on. We will not stop until everybody is restored. In the meantime, I ask for everybody to be patient and stay safe. And we will get through this. This is what we train and we drill for, and we're ready for the storm. Happy to open it up for any questions.
Where was that traffic accident?
That was here in Palm Beach County.
2 years ago, a massive outage, I think the state of Florida, when...
I'm sorry, how would you use, there you go.
Okay, sorry. 2 years ago, when Hurricane Irma came through, there was massive power outages all across the state. Do you have any indication whether a similar situation will happen this year? And if not, what kind of precautions have you taken beyond what you took 2 years ago?
So it's a great question. Pat, one of the things is every storm is different, and it makes a difference depending on where landfall is, the path of the storm after landfall, and obviously the intensity of the storm, as well as how much rain is associated with that. Since the 2004-05 hurricane seasons, we've invested over $4 billion in hardening the grid, as well as investing in a lot of smart grid technology. So everything from over 5 million smart meters have now been installed to over 100,000 devices on the grid itself that help us understand what's going on, and also, frankly, give us the opportunity to switch around and restore power even during the storm. There will be times when there's outages that are going on during the storm, and we will be able remotely, through using this technology, to be able to actually restore power. So some customers are going to have outages, and during the middle of the storm, they will be restored. It may go out again. And at some point, if a tree actually falls over and takes the lines out, there's no smart grid technology in the world that can restore that power. But what we can do now is segment, sectionalize the lines and reduce the number of outages that occurred so it's not a whole neighborhood. It might be only 3 or 4 or 5 houses. So we've made tremendous strides in using technology as well as investing in just hardening, resiliency, if you will. So FPL has about 7,000 miles of transmission lines, as an example, here in Florida. Almost all of our transmission lines are now mounted on concrete or steel poles. We've made a concerted effort over the last decade to take all of the wood poles out, and we are nearly done with the task of replacing all 7,000 miles of that. So that's a big difference as well. And in the last 2 years, we've continued that replacement program. And so I'm hopeful that we're going to see the grid be very resilient, but there is no such thing as a hurricane-proof electric grid. If a tree, especially with saturated ground, if a tree goes over, which is likely, that's 40 feet tall, it falls into the lines, it will take the power lines down, and that will cause an outage. We will be able to restore more quickly now because the poles that it's attached to are much more resilient. They typically will not go down, so that helps a lot with regards to restoration time, but it doesn't necessarily prevent an outage.
Hi there, this is Gianna Caserta with WPBF. I was just wondering, as far as we spoke about it yesterday a little bit, the lines that are underground, can you kind of explain to people how sometimes with the floodwaters, how that can take even longer to bring power back up possibly?
Sure. So underground lines, have about 40% of our 65,000 miles of distribution lines are actually underground. The challenge with underground lines can be with flooding if the transformers, which are those green boxes that you'll see on the ground, if those are underwater, then at times we will actually have to proactively turn the power off to make sure that everybody can be safe. And until those floodwaters recede, we can't re-energize the system. Part of this is also making sure that we don't destroy the equipment, because if it's energized and water hits it, it can actually destroy it. So we will, at times, such as if a substation is going to be flooded, those are the larger facilities that you'll see sometimes on the sides of the roads. We will actually turn those off proactively to make sure that they're not damaged. That's very unusual, and that's typically only on a substation that's located right by the coast, typically impacted by storm surge. We've actually relocated some of those, and in a few areas, one in St. Augustine as an example. Yesterday we put up what's called an aqua dam. It's actually a system that uses water in very large tubes around the substation to actually provide a barrier against storm surge. So we're trying to make sure that we can keep the power on as long as possible, but we're always going to have safety first, and we're not going to put anybody in harm's way by having electric lines underwater that are electrified and therefore putting people at risk.
Next question here, Chris Gilmore from WPTV.
Hi, Chris.
I was wondering, especially how important it is now that we have power and cell service to download resources like your guys' app, and what are you encouraging your customers to use it for in an event like this?
So the app provides you great information from a standpoint of what the outage duration may look like. Now, I'm going to be perfectly honest and tell you that we may not know exactly how long it will take to restore the power initially. Because once the storm is hitting, we have to actually get out afterwards and then take a look at what is the exact damage. And so there's a period of time where we don't know exactly how long it's going to take to restore the power, but the app will provide you with the real-time information that we have. And it will provide an opportunity for customers, particularly if they're not home. Many people have evacuated. You'll be able to see exactly what's going on at your house if there is an outage, what the expected time to restore is, and importantly, when it has been restored, so you'll know the lights are back on and it's safe to come home.
Pat Sullivan from the Washington Post again. An awful lot of Floridians have been telling our team that's throughout Florida after yesterday that, oh, well, the hurricane is not going to hit Florida. It's going to be off the coast, so no problem here. What do you say to those folks, to those Floridians who, maybe think that it's not going to be such a serious hurricane, even as I got a notice that it's up to 180 miles per hour?
Yeah. Pat, what I would say is it's very important to respect Mother Nature. I think it is foolish to just rely on what is an estimate from a track that is offshore on a storm of this magnitude. A few miles can make a big difference in wind speeds. And the difference between a Category 1 and a Category 2 storm is significant. A Category 2 to 3, these are exponential moves in wind speeds, and the same thing to a 4. And this is a Category 5 storm. If this storm continues on a westward track and makes landfall along the Treasure Coast, as an example, there would be significant destruction. This would not be a restoration of power. We would have to rebuild part of our system. Concrete poles could be snapped on these kind of winds. Homes would be destroyed, and we are talking about the difference of 50 or 60 miles. So I would say that you have to be prepared for the worst and hope for the best. That's what we have done at FPL. We have prepared for the worst. I am hopeful that the forecasts the general forecasts are correct and it stays offshore. But there are computer models that show this making landfall on Florida, on the coast. And so this is, as I said before, right now, the prediction is it has a 50% chance. That's a 1 in 2 chance of actually making landfall somewhere on the coast of Florida. So don't take any chances. And if you're in a low-lying area that's prone to flooding or storm surge, I would evacuate. I would leave that area. I would move my family personally out of harm's way to make sure. Go to the west coast of Florida. At this point, you don't have much option. I wouldn't go north. I'd go west, and I'd go southwest.
Madeline Montgomery, CBS 12 News. With the strong winds that we're expecting, I was wondering how strong do they have to be to take out a power line? And then with that, we're expecting strong winds for several days, and I would assume that would be dangerous to go up in a cherry picker for a lineman, but I don't know. You tell me. And also, kind of what are the rules for our linemen as far as how fast or how slow the winds have to be for them to be able to go up and fix things?
So the challenge I have is our men and women who are serving on the line typically want to get out as fast as possible, but we restrict them to 35 miles an hour or less. It is simply not safe to put linemen and women into a bucket truck and to fly that bucket in winds that are above 35 miles an hour. Above that speed, you also get a lot of flying debris. That becomes very dangerous as well. Wind speeds can vary significantly on doing damage because it really depends also on how much rain there's been, because the trees, we live in a beautiful state with a lush environment, 12-month growing season, and that means that we have lots of trees that grow significantly to pretty good heights that are far outside of our easements, but if they fall over, they will take a power line out. And that can happen in relatively low wind speeds if the ground is soft. So I fully expect in tropical storm force winds, which we are, that is what is predicted now at a minimum here, and particularly because this is a very slow moving storm. So we will see tropical storm force winds in all likelihood over us for a period of 24 hours, maybe longer. That puts a lot of pressure on trees and vegetation because they're being battered for a long period of time, coupled with a lot of rain. Fully expect that to result in a fair amount of outages. And, if a tree, particularly if it's big enough, like a big oak tree, that's a heavy piece of equipment, if you will. If it falls over, it's going to take a pole out. It's going to take the lines out. And our crews have to come in and remove it first before they can actually then repair the lines that are above ground. If it's below ground lines and the trees go up, the roots many times can rip up all of the underground utilities. And that can take even longer to repair because you have to actually remove all of that, all those roots and that root ball. Sometimes on a large tree, that might require a crane. People can simply not move it themselves. So we'll have to bring in heavy equipment, remove the tree, then rebuild the lines underground. That can take even longer. So there's no silver bullet whether you're above ground or below. They both have their benefits as well as their challenges when it comes down to restoring power. But we have crews that are specially trained in both, and we're ready for both scenarios. We've pre-positioned cranes, as an example, throughout our service territory, as well as equipment in case we have to replace it, in case we can't repair it on the spot. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you very much. Again, please, for everybody who's also watching via satellite and on Facebook Live, safety should be your #1 priority. Take these last few hours to make your final preparations, and then hunker down if you're here. Stay safe, stay off the roads, and know that we will be at this 24/7 until the lights are back on for everybody. Thank you very much.